Hey Bernie, Mayor Tim Handren here. Today's February 8th, bringing you the next edition of Mayor's Minute, talking about we had a great city workshop last night focused on the future. I want to tell you some of the important things that came out of that. We spent a lot of time talking through our plans for the next actually 6 years. This is part of a process that's been put in place over the last 4 years to get a whole life cycle of planning and continually updating our 10-year master plan for Boerne. And we went through a lot of those projects last night that you've spoken about, that we've heard for years that needed to be done. That $120 million over the next 6 years eclipses what we've spent over the prior 6 years. I'm very excited about what we have planned. What's the big focus of all those projects? It's a pretty broad set of topics, but if I can narrow it down into just a few major categories, what you voted on in the bond issue were parks, recreation improvements, road improvements, and then we have a lot of other things that have to happen from an infrastructure standpoint related to our utilities and other things. So when you look at all the road projects that are lined up, these are things that line up exactly with the recommendations that came from the Transportation Planning Committee that worked on a couple of years of suggestions, whether that's Adler Road or Cascade Caverns, Old San Antonio Road, or some of the other minor improvements across town. We've got all those projects lined up from soup to nuts for over the next 6 years. Some of these are really complex projects. They take a little bit more time to plan and design. But the good news is all that was talked about last night and will be put into the 10-year master plan. On the utilities front, we have several utilities that Boerne manages. And I might say we do a pretty good job at that. I think most of you know that when we had the winter storm, Boerne did a fantastic job with their utilities. You know, sometimes that tree trimming that happens in the spring that some people just don't like around those high wire lines prevented a lot of outages that some of the other utility companies had to deal with over the last 2 weeks. But when you look at all the projects and all the utilities that we maintain, whether it's water, whether it's electric, whether it's sewer, whether it's gas, or the reclaimed water, we have a lot of things that need to happen over the next 6 years, and the good news is all those projects are laid out. And a third major area where we have a lot of investment dollars, again, straight from the bond issue, is in parks. Talked about the big investment that we'll make in the big park on Adler Road, some of the other stuff that's going on in the other city parks, and even the acquisition of future land for more park dedications. Again, all that stuff is laid out. And if you want to watch that video last night, it was only an hour and a half long, and the part where we talked about all the plans was only 30 minutes. I would highly encourage you to go watch it because it is the future of where we're headed. And my hat's off to City Council. We've been working on this together over the last 3 years to line up all these projects just to get things done. A lot of these have been talked about for decades, frankly. Thankfully, now that you approved the bond issue, these projects are lined up. We're going to start seeing some great progress. So thank you, City Council, and thank you, citizens, for the vote that you put forward on the bond issue. I think you're going to see some great improvements. We went over the citizen survey. We just did our second citizen survey. Results came in, and you know, really there's not a ton of surprises in there. Not a huge difference from what we saw a couple years ago, but in a fast-growing community, we're going to have a divergence of opinion, right? And everybody has an opinion. That's what Facebook's for, I guess, where everybody can put their opinion out there. Half of the people in this town think that things are headed in the right direction, and half think that it's not. I understand that because if you've lived here a long time, maybe things are a little bit different. Having been in this role just recently, we're dealing with growth that's been going on, frankly, for 3 decades. A lot of people are unhappy with the congestion that's created, and so when you look at the survey results, managing growth and density is number 1 on people's mind. Managing the congestion in traffic is number 2 on people's mind. Continued beautification and park set-asides, that seems to be number 3 in people's mind. What I got out of the survey results last night is that a lot of our projects are completely lined up with what people want to see, and that came straight out of the survey, your voices. And I think that we do a good job of making sure we stay aligned with what people want to see done. You know, when we ask the question, where do you want to spend your tax dollars? Where do you think it adds the most value? Number 1 on that list was roads in and out of Boerne, and working with TxDOT and our county commissioners to ensure that those roadways are designed properly and that we have good flow in and out of Boerne. That was number 1 on the list. That's survey results, that's not my opinion. Number 2 on that list was dealing with congestion in the area, no question about that. And then number 3 was really focused on beautification in the city and more parkland acquisition and parkland creation, right? Again, we're trying to deal with the growth that's been going on for 30 years in Boerne. That's not an easy problem to solve. When you get behind, it's super hard to get caught up. But City Council is very focused on projects that will get us caught up and continue to improve the quality of life. I guess the last thing that I would say that came out of the survey when people were asked, would you recommend Boerne as a great place to live? 2/3 of the respondents gave it an 8 or higher on a 10-point scale and said, absolutely. I love Boerne, love everything about it. Want to keep that small town feel, which we all want. And I really think this is one of the greatest places to live. And when compared to other cities, how is Boerne doing? The vast majority of the people said we're doing far better than the other cities around Texas. So yeah, I think we're doing a good job in Texas. Again, hats off to City Council and the city staff for the continued dedication to making our community as awesome as it can be. That's all for now, Boerne, and we'll see you next time.